So thank you all for introducing me so nicely, Simeon and Paula, and setting me up well for this session. I have just recently joined the Modular Foundation. I previously worked over the last 15 years in emerging markets financial services. I was part of the original M-Pesa team back in 2005 as a coder. My career changed fairly rapidly into more of a technical product management role where I was backwards and forwards between the engineering team and the commercial team on the ground. And then from there, I went into a startup. So I went from a corporate innovation space into a fintech where we were trying to manage runway, we were trying to get customers, we were trying to get traction, and learning that actually big brands are quite important. So since then, I've been back in with the M-Pesa team doing things like Mshwari and the like. I've been working as a freelance consultant for various NGOs like IFINA, DFID, CGAP. I've been working in digital transformation initiatives with IFC into banks. I've been working with the Gates Foundation when the Modulip originally kicked off. So I have a lot of context and history behind this, but I am brand new to this new Modulip community. And so I just wanted to give you a little bit of introduction to the way that I think about this, and I'm hoping that it will resonate to some of the folk out there thinking about, well, what exactly is a product manager going to do at the Modulip Foundation? So when I present generally on service design, I talk about layers quite a lot. We need base performance. It needs to work reliably. But then there's more that happens in terms of good service design. And you can hear this in the way that Simeon and Paula are also describing things. I mean, we need to generate customer awareness. And sometimes there's software needed to help to do that. We need to know our value propositions. And sometimes, again, there's software and demos needed to do that well. We need service design, we need usability, we need access points, we need customer support. And that's come through again in everything we've heard this morning. And we need that ecosystem. What can I use it for? Where does it work already? The network building is super important to how we think about this going forwards. But this slide I did not build with Modulip in mind. This is how I think about service design, and it's how I can talk about M-Pesa. It's how I can talk about a lot of solutions that I've seen out there and worked with. So this is a fairly traditional graphic you see in the product management community. What exactly is a product manager? They're a mix of UX, tech, and business. And very much product management, in my eyes, is about maximizing business value from the product and really listening deeply to users as we go. And I think that's a big part of what we're going to do as part of this new thinking. Another slide from the product management community is this set of questions. These are the typical questions that keep business folk up at night in a commercial organization. How do we sell what we've built? Can we build what we've planned? Can we plan the right products? In the open source community, this is true as well. We just turn the questions around to how can we get adoption and how can we get sufficient contributions? No plan survives contact with the enemy. I use this diagram quite a lot when I'm talking about design and service design. And the number of times this has been true for me, it's unreal. Whatever we think is going to happen, something else will happen. And therefore, a big part of how I work is lean and iterative when possible, rather than big upfront design. So how do we turn it around? If we think about product management in terms of those questions before, we can plan the right products, we can build what we've planned, and we can sell what we've built, or we can get what we've built adopted by the right technology communities. And so I kind of think about the work of product as product operations. We have lots of DevOps kicking around in our software stack right now, but how do we put in place product ops? We need to think about the problems we need to solve. We need to describe the functionality, and we need to make sure that they get delivered to market. But I can't do this alone. And so that concept of the community growing and contributing more is so important to me. The product leadership council is the ultimate in distributed team of product people across the community running that distributed team. So I really want to think about setting up the Product Leadership Council to be about planning the right problems to solve and validating our thinking, ensuring that we can build what is planned, ensuring that we know how work gets supported into market and adopted, and ensuring that we have those feedback loops and that we are learning with those guys who are adopting the software. So I've only been around for 3 weeks. I've been talking to board members. I've been talking to some adopters, but I want to talk to so many more people in our community. I've been sitting on sales calls and listening to how we talk about the software. I've been doing some training at a parallel organization that talks a lot about scheme design and national payments and instant payments. I've been sitting in the design authority and change control meetings, learning what happens. I've been talking to technology teams and talking about the proposed roadmap items that we'll hear this week. And I've been learning about the community model. I therefore wanted to set this week up with some thinking around what I've heard. And I created a Miro board, and I'm hoping that we can, I'm going to stop the slides and just literally show you the Miro board. So I'm not going to go through this in any detail, but I heard lots of stuff. And from this, I spotted some themes. And I wanted to invite some of the people I talked to actually help unpack some of this thinking. So guys, would you come on screen? It's Warren and Steve and Miller and Adrian, because they're going to help me unpack some of this rather than you listening to me. I want to start bringing some empathy to the puzzle and making sure that we're talking about strategic objectives for the community in terms of what we're building in terms of product. So the first one that came up as a big theme in terms of what I heard was be feature complete for existing RFP responses for national switch procurement. And Steve, do you want to give us some thinking about this? You've got your microphone muted.
Sorry, Lesley, did you point to me? My audio went out for a minute.
Yes, I wanted to hear what a little bit more about what's going on for you in terms of being feature complete for existing RFP responses.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think the top ones you have there kind of summarize some of the main things that we've been hearing. First is that, there's a big interest in not, like, it's saying, we have some payments already. We don't want to throw away everything. So we want to understand how you're going to integrate with our existing payment infrastructure. And that's been something that's been coming up quite often. How does this work with card networks? I'm waiting to see a reaction on Miller's face when I say that. And how does it work with some of the things that they've already got in place? And that's been one of the big ones that's been brought up. And then the other thing is that there's a line between the ones that are saying, look, I want to build it from scratch. And there are a couple of countries that have decided, I want to build it from scratch. And if we catch them at the right moment in time, they love this because it's got almost what they need. But there's a huge chunk of them that actually are saying, look, I want something ready to go and I want to see it functioning. And so so we've got to balance which ones do we think we're going after. And we're hearing a lot more people who want to see it in action with a good UX, because central bankers and a lot of hub operator decision makers are not going to be able to follow a postman script. So those are the two ones that I think we've been hearing a lot.
Thank you, Steve. Adrian, would you bring me alive for me the next one? Help the non-tech ecosystem connect, engage, and feedback to us better with technology demonstrators, not slideware.
Sure. I think my experience with, especially with open source software, is that people want to download it, get up and running, and play with it straight away. And that's a full range of not just developers, right up to technical decision makers. You want your project to be something that somebody who maybe was technical once upon a time, but now they're managing a big budget and just making decisions, to be able to pull your code down, get it running, see something happening, get a feel for the system. I think that ability to sort of try before you buy, play around with things is really, really powerful. I think looking at slides and brochureware is only going to get you so far. It's really important that we have demonstrations and tools to help people do things like simulations and really visualize the use cases they care about, see stuff happening before their eyes. So I'm really excited about the testing toolkit. I think that's a really powerful visual tool, that allows you to simulate a variety of use cases and actually see visually the messages, back and forth, simulate different parts of the system, those kind of things. But on top of that, I think running the system itself as well, having a really simple way to go from zero to a working simulated system is powerful, whether that's on your own laptop or in a lab or whatever the case may be. I think that's important.
And Steve, I think that resonated to something I heard from you as well. You talked about Myanmar and how it made a difference when people had an actual system to work with to actually think about their scheme rule design. Do you want to unpack that at all?
I'm sure, but I'm actually got a whole presentation about that in about an hour.
Okay,
So,
awesome.
but I'll give you a teaser.
I've set you up well.
Though. I think exactly what Adrian said. I mean, it's not just about, it's about showing them the use case they care about. And so in that example, we have a very interesting use case that the participants cared about, but it is really about showing them the use case that they care about, that they want to see. And then from there, being able to make decisions, not based off of a theoretical scheme rule, but based off of actually seeing what is the impact on my backend, on my operations when this happens. So absolutely, that I think Adrian made a great point that we've seen very often.
Fantastic. I'm going to call on Adrian again because Simeon's busy in the background. But you heard a little bit from Simeon about the fact that we need to get adoption and we need more community contributions. And actually, there's a little bit of friction right now in terms of actually getting going as a developer that we might want to tackle. Adrian, do you want to kind of unpack that one for us?
Definitely the hardest nut to crack in open source is finding contributors. Like you're appealing to people to come and take an interest in your project beyond just sort of downloading it and playing with it, but actually getting their hands dirty with the code, whether that's, spotting an issue that they're prepared to make the effort to fix, or, even documentation or whatever the case may be. Pulling in contributors is really hard. So I think one of the things that we can do to try and make that easier is make the developer experience easy. I think there's a lot of work and products and things out there that are really focused on that, and my impression is that when you hear from really high performing teams in any software organization, there's a huge focus on developer experience. So the ability for developers to create really, really short feedback loops, I think that's key. If you can get the modular loop code base running on your machine in such a way that you can change something and see that change immediately, that's really powerful. If the feedback loop for trying a change or seeing the impact of your change is slow, you're going to put off a huge number of developers, and you're also just going to impact the productivity of the existing maintainers. So I think there's a lot we can do there, and fortunately, I think it's a really active part of the open source and software development sort of ecosystem is solving that. So the fact that we have everything in a form that potentially can run on like a mini cube, I think is a great. We're off to a good start. It's going to be about packaging that and in a form that developers are used to and really enjoy using.
Awesome. So number 4, I think we need to figure out a way to get better feedback from the live deployments that we have and remove more friction for live deployments. Warren, do you want to unpack that one for us a little bit?
Yeah, so we definitely need to make sure we have, you were talking about the product earlier, and it actually goes back to your first column here in terms of making sure that the product we have is actually meeting the market that's out there. within the principles and guidelines we have, because we believe that doing things in a particular way will make the world a better place. But it's also got to be accessible to the market. So ticking those boxes, we mentioned things. I don't think Steve mentioned in your list, but things like the ISO 20OCT20 challenge and things like that. So we have to exist in that wider ecosystem. We need to make sure we're getting the product out there, and then we need to make sure we are listening very carefully to the actual implementers.
And
and we have a great
roadmap. I saw on the roadmap some stuff around version control and release management and snapshotting and all the rest of it. And
yeah,
I really felt like this fitted this bucket as well.
Yeah, because whilst we are looking at, as an open source community, supporting those national efforts, central banks as a whole are not really in the business of writing software. They're in the business of providing those financial rails that the economy can grow on. So they need to know that there's a support mechanism in place, and that this isn't just like some crazy developers who came up with a great idea and it's all good. They actually need to know that it's not just going to work on their laptops, but it's going to work as a resilient set of rails for the country to depend on, and that we are going to, from the outset, be able to manage change, because that's the one thing we all know, right? With any of these systems, we don't want to become the establishment. Sometimes we talk about the way the existing systems are stuck in the past. Well, if we don't actually plan and design and engineer the solution to be something that can manage change going forward, we will become that. When we've got more than 3 live systems, we're in trouble.
Well, I've actually felt that pain personally when I've been at the DFSP. The cost of getting an upgrade to the latest version of software has been immense. So hence, it is actually a big part of the vision, is that how do you reduce cost?
Correct.
I wanted to add then on the last two, support, because I'm running out of time. I'm trying to keep to my time. The fifth one I had was support work on what makes this different from the average switching software solution available today. Adrian and Steve and Miller, actually, all three of you, and Warren, you all have lots of opinions on what makes this different. But why is it important that we focus on this theme of what makes it different?
I can probably answer that a little bit. I think the fundamental design choices we made 4 years ago when we started the project was that driven by the idea that no human being can afford to look at a 50-cent payment that went wrong. We need to have full automatic pass-through processing. So motion loop is not a switch. People like to call it that because the nearest thing they can find to what it does in the traditional world in banking is a message switch. But message switches simply exchange information between banking partners who are essentially left to themselves to figure out how to clear and settle. Motion loop is software to support clearing and settlement. It actually performs the clearing and settlement functions directly. You'll notice when you look at the architecture that it also has a set of message exchange services, including quotation and for address lookup services and other functions. But primarily, its reason for existing is to clear and settle transfers of money between facilitating financial institutions on behalf of their counterparties and their customers.
Steve, would you flavor that with the realities of what it's like having meeting with customers about differentiators?
Unfortunately, I lost audio for a second, but I think I've heard Miller talk. So again, I would say, while we can say it's not a switch, that's a term that people are aware of. And so if it's not, then the starting point is it's like a switch, but it's different because this. And so understanding where they're starting from is going to be important for us. And so the language I think we need to focus on is maybe what makes it different. Okay, fine. If we're not going to call it a switch, then the first word is it's similar to switch, but it's different because of X, Y, Z. And in addition to being different, it's this is the result of it being different, and it's the things that Miller pointed out. But I think realizing that we're now at a point where we're not starting from this idea that hub interoperability is a good thing. We're past that. We're now at the point where there are hubs out there, there are technologies out there that claim to be able to do these things. And that's great. But this one is better because of XYZ. And I think we really need to realize that we're at a stage right now where this is already similar things to this are already in the market. And we need to demonstrate why this accomplishes what Miller just described better than those things, and focus on that language, as opposed to hub interoperability is a good thing. I think we're past that.
Yeah. Adrian, do you want to flavor that at all?
Well, I think we'll cover a bit of it over the next few days,
exactly.
and talk about things like the third-party APIs. I think Miller mentioned it yesterday, and I think it'll keep coming up as a recurring theme. There are things about Moduloop that do make it unique and make it especially well equipped to solve for some of these problems that I think are basically applied learnings of many years of people deploying domestic payment systems, as well as a lot of research that the Gates Foundation has done prior to kicking this project off. So third-party APIs is one I'm really excited about. I know we're involved in some work there. There's a variety of work streams looking at that, and I think that is a big differentiator. I think there's been this theme of opening up access to central payment systems to non-bank participants all over the world. And I think what Moduloop does really well, gets right, is you still have your regulated clearing participants who have balances in the system, but you can still make the system available through APIs, third-party APIs, to non-DFSP participants, to the likes of a Google Pay or an ATM network operator or whatever the case may be. And I'm excited to see some of the other use cases that people are looking at in that space for things like bill pay, split payments. So we'll see a bunch of that coming over this week, and I think those are differentiators we should definitely be talking about.
And the final one, Miller and Warren, non-functionals matter. Improving the cybersecurity, having performance as a pillar. Just unpack that one a little bit for us, just as we finish up.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that central banks have to do things in sensible ways, and they need to have the understanding that the software that's deployed at a national level has the appropriate investments made in security, resiliency, disaster recovery, the ability to handle multiple shifts of people coming and going to operate the software. All of these things are separate from clearing and settlement. They are the non-functionals. And I think the investments that we've begun to make now are the right ones, to start thinking about security holistically through the system itself, though each of the individual pieces of the system were thought of very carefully for security. We do need to think about, how does this actually get into those areas that central banks and regulators are going to care about. Resiliency and resiliency planning and disaster recovery planning are things that an operating guidelines and a run book are going to have to write down. We should have an opinion about those things. And we've selected a set of platform service elements that allow us to do these things, such as Kubernetes, the use of the strategies that we have for inline upgrading of the software. So all of those things I think are good.
Yeah, we'll hear lots more about this week. And this is effectively like a really high level intro to kind of what we're going to experience over the next few days in terms of unpacking what's happened. And I think you probably will find that most of the projects we talk about align to one of these buckets. And certainly that I was able to go, that one could apply to 5 of these buckets. This one could apply to just one. There's different projects with different buckets. But the one thing that I'm here to help the community think about is the roadmap. And a big part of building the roadmap is prioritization. And a big part of our work this week is prioritization. And so the reason I kind of brought those buckets out for us to talk about was because we wanted to put that up as a voting for the team and the community in the voting software first. The detailed voting is going to happen at the end of the week on Friday. But from now until then, what's going to be open is what do you think about these buckets? Where do you think our energy is? And actually more than that, what's the cost of delay? What makes something important now and what's the most impactful scope that can be finished by the team in this PI is kind of the questions that I'm asking myself as we look at Friday's planning process after our report outs and our kind of thinking for the week. The reality is our job isn't to just build more features and to build more software faster. It's to maximize the outcome and impact from what we choose to build. And so we will always have more to build. But we have limited resources. We have the resources that the community are volunteering. And so that's the focus of what I'm thinking about as I listen to all the presentations this week. I'm really keen that all the teams, as they pitch and maybe even as they update their thinking for Friday, that they frame things in terms of the problem they're trying to solve. Why are they building it? How does it tie back? What's the underlying problem we've observed? How will we create value? And what does done look like? What is the scope? This helps all of us to understand better, and especially people like me who've been in the community for 3 weeks. How do we understand why this is the most important thing to do now? So I would simply put a question out to the teams. Can you frame how you're talking about your work in this way for your kind of work for the next PI? That's me for this session. It's been great to be introduced to the community. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you and talking to you more. And I'm looking forward to starting that conversation ASAP.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Lesley.